Hey everyone, this Hangout is now live. How you all doing?
Great.
So we've got Brajesh online and we're just waiting for Brett to show up. So we'll give him a couple of minutes. Good to have a few people here, and I'm sure hello to everyone who is watching this in catch-up mode. So if you're not here live, I know we get a lot of people watching these after the fact. So hi to you guys as well. Brajesh, while we're waiting, why don't you let us know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm formerly an engineer, and I switched careers to be a public speaker, and that's where I am. I live in Miami. I've lived in Florida for about more than 20 years, and yeah, that's a little bit of background on me. And I met you through the Emirati forum. We've spoken a few times. We've never met in person, but thank you for giving this opportunity to have a coaching call with you.
Well, thank you for being, and genuinely I mean this, and don't worry, this won't hurt, but thank you for being brave enough to not only be coached, because, and I mean this, I respect everyone that comes on these live coaching calls for two reasons. One is it takes courage to be open to coaching. I think especially with men, you know, we don't like being told what to do. Not that's what coaching is, but you know, being open to coaching, I believe, takes courage. So you have my respect for that. And then secondly, I think the other piece of it is, and I've had lots of coaching, it's a different thing when you're, you know, live, when other people can view it, and it's being recorded. So like I said, we'll make this as painless as possible, but again, I want to say both to you and to everyone who's been on these live coaching calls that, you know, you have a lot of respect, certainly from me, for the courage that you guys demonstrate. So, and I'm looking forward to it. I get a lot from these calls. We go in so many different ways. There's no kind of map for this, and it really is a live coaching session. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. Okay. So we're going to just get started, and hopefully Brett will join us, and if not, we might finish a little bit early. So Brajesh, what would you like coaching on today?
It's maybe even similar to what you were just saying, that I am in this attitude of I can figure out things on my own, and I'm very bad at asking for help, and I that's one of the things I wanted to get coaching help on, is that I feel like I can figure things out on my own, and I make incremental progress in whatever areas that I'm working on, and then with the belief that, okay, I'm gonna get there soon, and I feel I don't trust somebody can help me get there, so I don't reach out for help. And I'd like some coaching advice on how I can determine when I do need help, and then how do I find a person that I can trust, and how can I get the best out of reaching out for help.
Okay, so there's quite a lot there. If there was one thing, if you could be really succinct, if there was one thing that was different for you after this coaching conversation compared to what it is right now, what would that be?
I think it would be an understanding of maybe knowing where I want to get to, or how I can know where I want to get to, so that I know the right kind of help that I can ask for. That if I could have a better way to determine when I need help and when I can plod along on my own and make the progress, the incremental progress that I'm making, and when can I make progress that will shift me to another level, and then I just continue on my own until I need additional help. If I could have that knowledge or that skill set.
Why is that important? And just take a second to answer that. Don't just rush to the first thing that comes to mind. Just really think about it. Why is it really that important?
There are areas that I want to improve in my life, and I would like to be better. And I recognize at least that in the areas that I want to improve, it's probably going to be a lifelong quest, and there'll always be improvements. And I would want to be better, and I think it's more also for financial success. So in some areas in my life, if I'm doing better there, I will be financially successful. Right now, I'm not making any money out of my speaking. So at some point, I would want that to be generating revenue.
So let's get into the detail a little bit, because I think we're talking very general right now. What areas of your life do you want to be different? And because we started off this conversation with you saying, you want to get help, you're not great at getting help, but you don't know when to ask for it and who to ask. But I'm not sure if I'm really I don't know if I'm really feeling if that's the real issue. So give me some areas of your life that you want to be different.
Yeah, just for example, I have like 3 important things that I want to improve on. One is my back health. So I get muscle spasms, and I've been seeing doctors for a while, and I've lost trust in them, and I try to make myself better, but it's not working either. And I would like to be the professional that could say, yeah, this is how I can help you with your health. So one is my health. The other area is, of course, my relationship with women. I would like that to improve. And I've taken some training classes, and I'm part of the Emirati, and I'm making incremental progress there. And the third one is to be a public speaker. So my desire is to be a great public speaker, and I'm putting myself out there, speaking, going to open mic events, competing in speech competitions, writing my own speeches. And how do I monetize that? I'm trying not to think about that. I'm enjoying the process of all the mistakes I make, all the effort I put in. But at the back of my mind, there's something that says, well, how are you going to make money out of this? And what help do I need to get me there? So those are the 3 things that are on my list that I seem to feel like I can figure these out on my own, and I plod along. And at some point, I would like to meet that right person that can, and it'll be 3 different people or many mentors or whatever that can guide me. And I also feel like I wouldn't find, or it'll be hard to find that person.
If I can summarize, Brajesh, in terms of what you're saying, there's 3 areas that you would like to be different, and the 3 areas are your back health, your relationship with women, and the third one was public speaking and monetizing that. Is that correct?
Right.
And it sounded like the first one was you really didn't know where to get help, right? You didn't know who could help you with regards to your back.
Right, right.
Is there anyone, so let's just take each one at a time. And I don't know the answer to this, by the way. Is there anyone in your life who might know, and I'm not saying kind of theoretically, I'm just like people that you know, is there anyone in your life or anyone that you know, through a network that might know something about how to improve your back health?
Yes, when I share this with my friends, almost everyone has a chiropractor that they recommend, or an acupuncturist that they recommend, or a doctor that they've seen, and I just don't trust that that person will be the right one for me. And I did try some of them, and I feel like the person that helps me immediately just tells me do these exercises or do this without trying to understand, the years of knowledge that I have that could probably help them better to help me. So they don't ask me which position hurts or what have you tried, what are the things that you're doing. They just give me 10 things to do, and I'm like, well, I already did those, so I don't trust you because I don't think you're giving me the right advice. And yeah, and I do share it with my friends that I'm looking for help, and I do take their inputs on recommendations that they give. But so far, I'm still struggling with finding someone, and then I'll go on the internet, or I'll buy books, and I'm going to figure this out on my own. So I do my own kind of exercises. I try out things on myself. And I have this I think what I mentioned in the beginning, this attitude that I can figure things out on my own, and I don't need anyone to help me.
Well, it sounds like, I don't know if I buy into that, because it sounds like you do know, because you've brought up the question here. So you've got some awareness that you can't figure everything out by yourself, and it sounds like you're still open to at least exploring the possibility that someone else might be able to help you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have number one, you wouldn't have volunteered to be on this coaching call, and secondly, you wouldn't have raised this question.
Yes, I am open to receiving help, but I quickly discard people that do help me. Like, I don't trust them. And so I just dive back to, why should I waste my time trying to find more people to help me? I'm just gonna do it myself.
And if we come, well, maybe let's move on to the second area. So do you want help with regards to women? You said you're making incremental changes and things are going well. Is that an area you'd like more help in? Is that an area that you think you're being held back in terms of your progress because you aren't asking for help?
Yeah, it's like I've been working on this for years, but like I see posts on, for example, the Emirati Forum that we went to the 9-day special, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't need that, I can do without it. But then a year later, I'm like, okay, maybe I should have done that. So maybe another way to put it is that I keep thinking I'm going to reach a point where I am good enough, but then I don't realize how far away that is. So maybe I should go get some help.
See, it's interesting to me, Brajesh, and by the way, this is not to say I've got all the answers at all. I'm very much, I like to think I'm on the same boat as everyone else in this group, in terms of this is a group of peers. We're on our journey to, for more excellence in our lives. And what's interesting to me, Brajesh, is there are many people that will give us advice, right? And I know I've had this growing up. It seemed that that anyone would give us advice. And I think as men as well, men like to know that they're knowledgeable. So if a man asks the question, as men, we want to give advice back and say, yeah, well, this is what I know, or this is how I think things are, etc. And yes, if you take on everyone's advice, then you're going to get a lot of different opinions. But I would say let's say if we take women, right? I know that some guys who are very, very good in that side of life, because we know some of the same people. And I would say, well, let me put it out there to you. Would you be open to hearing what they have to say, or what's holding you back from even? Because it sounds like something's holding you back there.
Yeah, I think I feel that if I do ask someone for help, they'll tell me something that I don't want to hear, and then I won't. Then I'll say, no, I'm just going to do this on my own.
I think now we're getting to the crux of it, because that's kind of what I was sensing. It's like, I don't think that the issue is asking for help, or I think you're right. That I think the issue is you've got nowhere to hide, right? Because if you go and approach someone who you know and respect, or has got a certain amount of expertise in a certain field, and they tell you to, and I can relate to this, by the way. I know purposely, if I really wanted to change an area of my life, I would go and do whatever it took to make that happen. And there were certain areas of my life which I said I wanted to change, but I would not take certain steps, because I know if I did it, if I took those steps, it would mean that I would need to take the next steps. And I was afraid to do that. And that's okay, but I think that whether it's an issue, I don't even know if it's an issue or a problem, but I think that's what's going on. And it's useful to know that, because then it puts the choice firmly back in your hands. Do you want a certain area of your life to change? If the answer is yes, you take those steps, which may include going and asking people for help. And if the answer is no, that's okay. You don't ask for help. But I think there's an element of, and if I may be so bold, I think there's an element of lying to yourself, right? And an element of ego here, where you're saying, I don't trust people, I don't want to ask for their help, I can do it on my own, when you really know deep down that's not the case. I think you know that already. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, I think I just don't want to hear some things from them that perhaps I feel are not needed, or that I've already tried, so it would be a waste of time, or that they haven't taken the effort to understand me, so I won't trust them for let's say they say do these things, and maybe I've done a few of those before myself, and I'm like, no, that didn't work, so I don't trust you for guiding me through this.
In terms of a guide, Brajesh, let's say you found a great mentor or guide, and I'm going to ignore the back one for a moment, because maybe that's a bit more specialist. But if we take the other couple of areas where certainly I know there are people that could help you, both in the area with regards to women, and also in the area of being a successful public speaker. Let's say you found the best person in the world to guide you, the best coach, the best mentor, the best guide, whatever you want to call it. What if you had to put down, let's say we had Brajesh's success in either of those fields, right? And let's say you were successful, and let's call that 100%. right? What percentage of your success would you think would be down to that coach or mentor? From 0 to 100, what would be their impact on your success, do you feel?
I don't know if I can answer in percentage, but I would say a lot.
Right. See, this is what I thought. This is what I'm kind of getting from the way you're asking the questions. And I would say, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, both being coached by world-class coaches and being a coach myself and coaching some incredible people, I think you're going to have to flip that on its head, because in my opinion, regardless of the coach you got, the vast majority of your success will be down to you. And in fact, when I coach clients myself, I let them know that during our work together, 80% of the success or the benefit will be down to them. I'm only 20% of it. And it's interesting that actually, as I've got better and better at coaching, the more I realize that percentage is a lot smaller. And when I was starting out, I thought it was the other way around. I thought, what's going to change in my client's life, the majority of that is down to me. And I realized that's simply not the case. And you see this, you see some incredible coaches, mentors, both formally and informally. If it was just simply a case of the mentor or the coach could transform people, then anyone they came in contact with would be transformed, at least in that area. And you and I both know some incredible coaches and mentors. And if you look at their client list, in reality, people have had different amounts of impact in their lives. And this is a good thing, by the way. This is not a negative thing. This isn't a bad thing. This also isn't a reason to say, well, I can do it myself. If 80% of it is down to me, then I'll do it myself. I think coaching is invaluable. I think mentoring is invaluable. I think having a guide can be invaluable. It has been invaluable to me. But when I've gone through various courses, when I still get mentored by people, I realize the vast majority of the benefit of that is down to how I show up. And it always used to intrigue me how, before I did this professionally, I would go on a training course or I'd hire someone, and I would typically get, a lot of benefit from doing that course or getting coached. And yet other clients who did the same thing wouldn't get so much out of the course or the person. And I always used to be intrigued by that. What is it? What makes the difference? And I think a big part of it comes down to the fact that when I invested in myself in years gone by and now, I make sure I get my money's worth. And I remember I had a coach years ago, and this person was coaching me and they were in a really bad mood. And I intuitively knew, if this person stays in a bad mood, and we were spending 2 days together, one-on-one coaching, and I was like, if they're in a bad mood, I'm going to get less out of this coaching. And so I tried to cheer them up. It should be the other way around. Like, they're lifting your state of mind or whatever. But it was the other way around. And I intuitively knew, if this person's in a bad place, I'm going to get less out of him. And so I was determined, no matter how the coach showed up, or it can be a training provider, it can be a friend, it can be an informal guide, I want to get the most out of that. And so you're right, if you're looking for people to shift you and change you, that's not going to happen. And you'll end up in confirmation bias, which is, you'll think they can't help me, they show up, you don't realize 80% of it's down to you, nothing changes, and then you go, oh, well, see, didn't change anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was surprising when you said that 80% is me. So I didn't expect to hear that.
If you look at it, you look at the top sports stars, right? the funny thing is, in any field, the top people are the ones that have the most support, right? So in the UK, football, you guys call it soccer. It's the biggest sport in this country. In the lower leagues, you're just down on your own. And as people get, up the ladder and more professional, they have more and more support, in terms of dietitians, in terms of their training, in terms of different coaches. They have a lot of support around them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because they need more support. It's because they realize no matter how good they are, that support is helpful to them. Now, when they're on the pitch, when they're playing the game, not all of that support can't do anything. It's down to the player. It's down to the player whether they score the goal or, run full out or do whatever. It's not down to the coach or the backroom staff. And so it's the same with you and I, that we can have the best people around us, the best support team, but it ultimately comes down to how we show up. It's always that way. And when you really think about it, it wouldn't be any other way. And that's why we really value and idolize these people who do great things, right? The athlete who wins gold medals at the Olympics, or wins a world championship, or, wins a whatever competition, or even a group that does that in team sports. Because we intuitively know it's not just the coach. If it was, that would make sport boring, right? You just get the team, you get the best coach, and they're going to win everything. It doesn't happen that way. So really what I'm saying is I'm putting the onus firmly back on yourself and saying it's not about finding the right person. And if you're open to it, it really is putting your ego to one side, deciding this is what I really want, and then approaching people who have done it before or have got something to share, and then investing in yourself if you want, or even just asking for advice if you want, but with a viewpoint of it's going to be up to me what I do with this information.
Yeah, I think I resonate when you say the word ego, that I almost feel like, let's say one day I reach the levels that I wanted to, I want to say I did it all on my own, and then that would make me feel good. Whereas if I had help to get there, then I wouldn't feel so good about it. And that's my ego speaking there. That's,
absolutely.
Just wants me. I just want to be able to say I did it all on my own, and yeah, I was too proud to ask for help. I think yeah, I like that. I resonate with that.
You name me one top sports person who's done it on their own. I can't think of a single person. You look at all the greats, and they had trainers and people around them. Even in years gone by, I know there's more of a culture of that now because people realize how effective it can be. But no one does it on their own. Not a single person. And why would you? And actually, everyone who turns around and says, I am going to do it on my own, I don't want any help, in my opinion, don't tend to reach the pinnacle of their sport or their field. Like I say, when you look and you see, even in business, people that get more senior, the more senior they get, the more coaching, the more support, the more training they get. Not because they need it, it's because they realize that's going to help them. They put in their own time and energy and commitment, and that helps them deliver much, much more. Is this? I'm aware of times, so these are kind of shorter coaching calls, but is that helpful for you today? Are you feeling complete right now?
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I almost feel like that. I think of that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and I think that they're there. I'm just refusing to see them, and it's time to just see them and go for the help that I want.
Good. Well, thank you, Brajesh. Thank you for being open to that, and like I said, you have a lot of respect from me for showing up today and being really open to this. And you know, we can only cover a small amount. I think if we had a full-on coaching session, I could go a lot deeper, but I hope that's been helpful for you today.
Great.
Brett, thank you for joining us. I don't know if you can unmute your microphone, because I muted you earlier. We had a little bit of background noise. There should be a little microphone button.
Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry, a bit raspy. I was just on a late night conference call, so I'm a bit sort of looking a bit tired at the moment, but I'm still here and present at the moment.
Good.
It kind of shifted, yeah, it shifted actually what I wanted to talk about today. Originally, I was thinking about something that was kind of in the forefront of my mind, and I thought it was around getting back to purpose. That the whole David data, you know, finding your purpose and living that. And I had some insights around that that I thought was quite useful, particularly around things that have been quite painful for me, and realizing that I have some value in that because it's just something that I've struggled with, and I have empathy for people, particularly around things like anxiety, you know, low moods, depression, things that I've kind of I felt like I dealt with, but are still kind of there. I feel like that's not really what is important right now. I feel that what to me I'm finding helpful is this idea of self-acceptance, self-love, and I get a bit kind of resistant to that term self-love because it sounds a bit kind of new agey and spiritual. So maybe self-acceptance sounds a bit better for me, that I can sort of be okay with that. But what I'm finding is that the more I see that, the more I'm okay with myself and how I am. It's similar to what you were talking about with Brajesh around how you show up. And when I'm in this kind of more peaceful state, when I'm just feeling more comfortable in my own skin, that's when I find that things start happening for me. And when I'm not, I feel the need to perform. I feel the need to get somewhere. I get competitive. I get obsessed about things. I get really off track in this sense to try and prove myself to other people, to the world in some way, that I'm good enough. So that's, I guess, what I'm finding. That feels like a foundation for everything to happen for me now, is the more I can get, I guess, clarity around that, and the more, I guess, the kind of deeper levels of self-acceptance that I have, I feel that's really going to be very helpful for me right now. So I don't know if you have any comments or questions around that. That's sort of what I just have at the moment.
Well, again, first of all, thank you for coming onto the call and you know, being open to coaching and, you know, in this format. And you know, with your question, it's something that I've been asked before, and I've got a different viewpoint on it, and some people may disagree with it, and because you're right, I think it seems to be a thing bandied around about, you know, you need to love yourself, you need to accept yourself, you know, if you don't love yourself, then no one else will, and you know, it seems to be this thing which is a hurdle in our way. And for me, I like to see it as almost like a red herring. And I was speaking to a client about this today, in fact, and I was telling him that we end up adding another thing to our to-do list. right? So we say, you know, I must, you know, work out, and I must eat healthy, and I must get to bed on time, and oh yeah, don't forget, I must love myself too, right? We've got to, we've like, oh yeah, there's another thing for me to do. And you know, I've been there. I've done the Anthony Robbins incantations, you know, every day and every way. I'm feeling better and better, you know, like, and I wake up and I used to say this stuff as a doing. But if I'm honest, how much I love and accepted myself really did not change much. Because love and acceptance, in my experience, is not a goal to achieve. It's not somewhere to get to. It's actually a byproduct of a clear mind. It's a byproduct of our natural state. And the only thing that gets in the way is misunderstanding. That's it. So when your monkey mind is going and thinking all of these thoughts that I'm not good enough, that I should have done this, why haven't I done that, oh, whatever, which we have, all that's doing, it's blocking the natural love and acceptance you have for yourself anyway. And we see this with children, right? You look at babies, they don't have self-love issues, they don't have self-acceptance issues. They don't think, oh, what does that other baby think of me? Right? They just go and play or cry or poop or, you know, whatever. They just are, they're just being in the moment. And the only thing that shifts from us as babies to adults is we get a whole bunch of thinking along the way. Now, the problem is, if we think that we need a more self-love, more self-acceptance from a place of misunderstanding, right? We're in a place where we're not really sure, we've got all this thinking going on, and then we add another thing to do, we're actually making it harder for ourselves to tap into that, what is a very natural feeling. It's very, very natural to be, and I wouldn't even say it's accepting of yourself. I would actually say it is love. But and maybe I'm getting pedantic over words, but I wouldn't even say it's self-love, because self-love to me implies ego, the self, the image we create of ourselves. I don't need to love the image I created around Ankush. You don't need to love the image you've created around Brett. But your natural state is one of love. And that's there. That's not something to attain. It's not somewhere to get to. It's just there. And you and I have known each other for a little while. You know, we've had a kind of professional relationship. And I know there are moments where you feel great and you're in a great place and you have no self-love or self-acceptance issues at all. And there are moments where you feel pretty crappy. And that's the same for me too.
Yeah, you're just cutting out a little bit, Ankush. But can you hear me?
Yeah. So what was the last thing you heard?
You're saying you have moments where you feel great and you don't have any self-acceptance or self-love issues.
I was saying that for you. I said we've known each other for a while, and I know that there'll be moments for you where you don't have any of those issues, and there'll be moments where you're feeling really down on yourself. And it's when you're feeling down on yourself, it looks like, well, I've got these self-acceptance issues, which I need to do something about.
Yeah.
But you don't, because when you're in a great place, you've not worked on those issues. You've not fixed or changed anything. They're just not an issue. And it's useful to know that. I mean, it's useful. Sorry, go on.
No, I can hear you, and I totally get what you're saying, and I can kind of see this now. It's funny because I find that this, in a way, for me, is the trappings of this kind of personal development, spirituality kind of community, is that I find they put context, they put words around these sort of things that can be helpful, and also I find sometimes I get lost in those things. So bringing it back to something so simple as just feeling good and not trying to understand why or how to go back to that feeling even. Because I have experienced that, and I've had moments where I'm not thinking about personal development, I'm not thinking about spirituality, I'm not thinking about all these kind of ideas, and I just feel good. And if I was to try and understand why, it would be very unhelpful for me. And I think this is, it puts me back into my head and to my intellect and trying to understand it all and figure it out. Even as you were saying there, I was like, I wonder what would be helpful right now. What would be a good technique maybe that would get me back to having more of this? Like, this is a good thing. How do I tap into that more often? And I know from experience, it hasn't happened like that. Even as I'm speaking, I'm trying to understand what would even be helpful, but I think that's in a way unhelpful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just drop it. You're right. Just drop all of it. And what I was going to say is, I mean, this is really helpful for anyone who's listening to this either live or listening to this afterwards. Think about the things that seem really, really important when you're upset, when you're pissed off, when you're in a low mood, right? Think about what becomes really, really important to do. Now contrast that with what looks important to do when you're in a great space, when you had a brilliant day, you're on top of the world, you're walking on air, and you probably see there's quite a big difference. You'll see that there's, and this goes beyond self-love. I mean, I want to kind of pull this back a little bit. This goes beyond self-acceptance, because there might be all sorts of things that you think are important to do or get your head around when you're not in a particularly great space. And I know for me, and it's taken me time, but I've started to realize, you know what? I probably want to pay less attention to myself or what seems important when I'm not thinking clearly, when I'm in a bad mood, when I am upset, and I want to pay more attention to myself when I'm in a better place, right? If you were getting surgery, right, and you had two doctors, and they both were equally competent, they were exactly the same, and one doctor was having a great day and one doctor was having a crappy day and was in a bad mood, we intuitively know we want to go with a doctor that was having a great day and in a great mood, because we trust their judgment, even though their competency is exactly the same. We understand this. We see this in other people. We would not want to go with a doctor who's in a bad mood. They're more likely to make mistakes. They're not likely to think as clearly. They're not as likely to make good decisions. Yet when it's us, we sometimes don't see that. Sometimes we're in a bad mood. It looks really important to make that decision, make that phone call, tell that person what I really think of them, assess how well I'm performing in life compared to my imaginary scale that I made up, or the imaginary thing I should be doing in my life by now. It's all made up. And I see this a lot in the self-development world. I see this a lot even in the three principle world, where people can get innocently caught up in this, right? You start analyzing it, you try and model it, you try and fix it, you try and create a system around it, when actually it's very, very, very simple and there's just less to do. This is, the three principles, as I know you know about, and it's kind of style of coaching I use from that understanding. It's very subtractive. It takes things off your mind. And when you take things off your mind, life flows a lot better, things go a lot better, you're a lot more effective, and you're a lot happier. And we all need reminding of that from time to time.
Yeah, what comes to mind as you were speaking is this like stripping away of all these things. Again, not as a thing to do, but just the awareness of all the things that I like to add on to things, particularly when I'm not in such a good space. And when I am feeling good, there's nothing to add. It's not something that needs to be fixed or remedied or solved. And I just carry on with my day. And I guess it's just, it's almost like, oh, how can I have more of that? But, you know, again, that's, that can kind of get into a bit of a how-to again. So, yeah, I don't know how we're going for time,
Okay.
but already that's been really helpful.
It's useful to notice, you know, how much time we spend in our heads. Right? We're not actually living life, or we're living it through the filter of that voice in our heads. And a lot of different authors, a lot of different people talk about that. And it's just useful to know. It's useful to notice, right? If that voice is really active and it's really going on, you know, it's like having the radio on full blast when you're trying to revise, you know, or like, I don't know. So let's imagine music you don't really enjoy. It's distracting, and you might not even notice it, but when it stops, it's really helpful. I don't know if you've ever had this, like you have the TV on in the background and you kind of forget that it's on, and then when you switch it off, you're like, oh God, yeah. And you enjoy that little bit of silence. It's the same thing in your mind, right? When you've got all that noise going on, and then you're kind of, what you're searching for is actually you're searching for that quiet place inside. But what it looks like is, oh, I need self-love, I need self-acceptance. Or for someone who's procrastinating, it's, I need motivation, I need to motivate myself, right? Or, you know, so many of the buzzwords that we hear, right? Oh, I need this, I need this. You know, you talked about kind of finding your vision at the start. I need to find my vision. I cannot start my day unless I have a clear vision of what life looks like in the future. And we create all of these things that seem really, really important in that moment, and just simply not. And if you don't believe me, try it out for yourself. You don't have to believe me. Have a day where you're really trying hard to figure this stuff out and see how that goes. And then have a day where you just kind of put it all to one side and just live. And I'm not saying be lazy. I'm not saying, oh, because people think that. People think if they don't put pressure on themselves, if they don't really try and force themselves to fix some of these things, that they'll become lazy and won't do anything. And I just haven't found that. I haven't found that for me. I haven't found that for my clients. I wonder if you found that for you. You know, if you're having a great day, you don't tend to do less.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I'm noticing, and I think I had just leading up to this call, is just with people and situations that I was in, with the specific situations don't matter. It's the idea that when I put pressure on myself, when I try and force things to an outcome of something happening, and sometimes it's some other person's idea, something outside of me, that this is like something to follow, that it doesn't work, and even if it does, it doesn't feel very good. And when I'm not putting pressure on myself, and I feel like I'm not having to work for something, I find that things just come to me a lot easier, and I feel like I'm just being more than doing things. And it's not saying I'm not doing anything, but it's just, in a way, it is acceptance in some way. I find that acceptance of myself, but again, those are thing to do, but being okay with how I am showing up, and if that's a little more low-key and reserved, or whether it's more bubbly or whatever mood I'm in, being okay with that. And yeah, I think I'm good at the moment, actually. We've been talking about this for a long time, but yeah.
Good. Well, I think that's probably a nice place to pause. I'd love to hear from people on the side if that was helpful. If anyone's got a question, if there's something that you're not sure about, feel free to paste it on the side. I don't know if that was helpful to you, Brajesh. Sometimes what I find is that I'll have two people that I'm coaching and might be very different things, but people take value out of it and find it relevant to their situation.
Yeah, not necessarily relevant, but I liked what you said about the self-love and your different take on it. I never heard that before. So a nice perspective I'd like to also try out.
Great. Has anyone got any questions in the room? I know we've got a bunch of people online, so if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask. If anyone's got any questions that they don't want to ask in a public forum, then please do reach out. Again, if you're watching this in the recording and you've got any questions about this, feel free to reach out and ask me. I'm very happy to answer questions. And I really enjoy doing these live webinars. It's fun. I think the first couple were a little bit nervous, kind of doing it live on air, and anything can happen. But they've turned out really good fun. I've enjoyed them, and I've enjoyed today. I hope you both have got some value out of today. If anyone else is listening to this and they want to find out more about me or the Powerful Men's Group, you can visit my website, which is www.ankushjain.co.uk. There's a contact me page, the best way to get hold of me. There's a blog where I do a load of podcasts, and I can let you know about the Powerful Men's Group as well, where all these wonderful guys are, and there's a whole host of other resources and stuff in that group. Thanks for joining us both.
Thank you, Ankush.
Thanks. Appreciate your time today. Yeah, it's been really helpful.